Hi Ritesh.
Hey, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very well, very well.
Yeah. Everything is set for the session, right? You can hear me properly.
I can hear you. Let me
Oh,
know if you can see my screen.
yeah. You can put your screen, and also if you'd like to like enable your video cam, then also you can do.
I don't want to do that.
Okay, cool. What you can do, like you can quickly introduce about yourself and what your session is going to be about, and then you
Yeah,
can start with your session.
sure, sure.
Okay, cool. I'm sharing a screen.
Sure. I think I'm online. So thank you everyone for joining this session in the morning. I know this is the first session and, and it's going to be really good. So thank you for joining us. And I'm going to share my slides first. So just to give a small introduction. Uh, we are in times of a pandemic, and we know that COVID-19 is big and is impacting all of our lives. And there are a few things that we need to do to safeguard ourselves. And one of the things is definitely whether we are wearing a mask or not. So this gave me an idea actually to create a solution in which we can identify or non-identify people who are wearing masks from images. So this could be done from videos as well, but this was a small POC I created to ensure that uh, I am able to extract information from images about masks. So without before getting into the details of the session, let me introduce myself. I'm Ritesh Modi. I'm Microsoft Regional Director, and I'm an ex-Microsoft in which I used to work as a senior technology evangelist. Written quite a few books on Azure and blockchain and DevOps, and some of them are listed over here. And some of them actually uh, are selling well, bestsellers as well. So have close more than 17 years of experience, completely a geek and a technology guy, always looking for new things to work on technology. So that's about me. And now we can get started with the session. So before we get into identifying masks from pictures, we need to understand that this is an aspect of machine learning. And when we talk about machine learning, a problem can be solved using multiple different ways. There are many algorithms out of the box available, and we can use those algorithms to use it to find a solution to the problem that we have in our hand. Or we could use something like a specialized stream of machine learning called deep learning, in which we don't take any out of the box algorithms, but we actually go and create neural networks and find our own way of solving the problem. So when we either approach is good or bad, it doesn't matter till the time you have the right resources, right amount of data with you. What matters is the process as well. So once you know that whether you're using a particular algorithm or you're using deep learning to solve your problem, you also need to get your data. Once you get your data, you need to ensure that the data that you have is clean data. There is no biasness in them. You can pick data randomly, and you will get the same, and you will get no biasness in them. If there is any data which is not required, which we typically call it as feature engineering. So you may add more features to it by doing some exploratory analysis on the existing data, or you would remove some of the existing features which might not have any correlation or which might not have any impact on the type of thing you're doing. So when we do machine learning process, there are quite a few things like a pre-processing, after pre-processing of the data, which means you're making sure that the data that you're going to use for creating your model is accurate, is appropriate. And then you actually train your model. You train the model, you actually have two sets of data, train data and test data. And from a training data, you actually generate a model, and then you use that test data on the model to see how well your model is performing. And if you think that the model is not performing appropriately or not coming up to your standards, then you actually change all the parameters, some of the hyperparameters, some of the features, and rerun the entire thing. And that's why we call it experimentation, to see if your results are improving or not. And then finally, you choose you score the model, and then you make sure that you can use those model in production. So when we talk about using machine learning, there are obviously two different streams, two different kinds of algorithms. We have one is, we typically call it regression and classification, and the other is clustering. And if you have to classify them, they are typically known as supervised and unsupervised learning. So when you do unsupervised learning, you are doing clustering. And when you're doing supervised learning, either you're doing regression or classification. So one of the main problem using mask, when you think about it from images, typically you use algorithms related to classification, because you want to classify whether a particular image, somebody is wearing a mask or somebody is not wearing a mask. And there are multiple different streams of classification, like object detection, which can eventually, from within an image, find out whether where the mask is. If the mask is not there, then there is no identification. But if the mask is there, what is the region in which the mask is available? So classification is the problem, is algorithm that we use to generate a model, which will accept data. And once it accepts data, it will be able to classify into the right labels. We have to understand the difference between classification and object detection. So as I mentioned before, classification is whether if I give 100 images to my model, the model should be able to tell me that out of these 100 images, 80 images belongs to mask and 20 images do not belong to have mask. So it's able to classify the images. Whereas if I give those 100 images and tell and use object detection, then I'm basically asking, within those 100 images, find out the area or find out the region or the coordinates within the image where the mask is available or the mask is not available. It could be both. So that's the main difference between a classification and an object detection. So just to understand classification a bit more better, if we have a lot of data, you can think about it as images, and we take it to the classification algorithms, should be able to segregate them into different labels. And so you can see on the right side that you have all the bikes or the cars or all the trucks as separate labels, compared to when you have a mix of data with all these images together. And that is what classification is. Now you might be wondering, why am I talking about all this in a case of an image mask detection? This is because of the reason, because mask detection uses all of these technologies behind the scenes to make it happen. Because if you think about it, either I can start, provision some GPUs on a cloud, or maybe if I have it on premises, which is a costly option, so typically I will go for a cloud. I will provision some GPUs, I will get my data, upload my data into appropriate places, and write my algorithms, my code, and run my entire code of deep learning on those GPUs. Typically, I will write convolutional neural networks, which deals with identification of data from images and videos, typically. And we'll get data out of it and then get going on that. That's a long process. That consumes a lot of time, really needs a lot of resources and patience as well. And you have to keep fine-tuning them, all the parameters as I mentioned before, to make sure that the level of performance that you want from your model is according to your standards. So all this, if you do, which is also costly in nature, there's an alternate to that, and that is to use cognitive services. And when we want to use cognitive services is an Azure resource in which typically what you do is, if you go to Azure and you click on cognitive services, then you can create something called a custom vision. So you can say, I want to create a custom vision resource. When you click on the custom vision resource, you can simply create provide the details about where your resource should be created, what's the resource group, what's the location, training location, what's the pricing tier, and things like that. So there's a difference between training and prediction, and this is the same difference as I mentioned before, training and test. So where do you want to do these kind of activities? Behind the scenes, when you create this resource called custom vision, then it actually needs a lot of CPU power behind the scenes. It could be GPU if on the need, and it needs to execute those models behind it on your behalf. So this is a platform as a service. This is not like you go and provision your own virtual machines and then do everything on your own. This is something which is given to you. The only thing that you do is provision the source, and appropriate kind will be provisioned for you, and you just need to bring your data. So once you create this resource, COVID-19 data. So this is, again, you can see it's a cognitive resource. It's based on cognitive APIs. Now, when you create a resource like this, you can also log in to actually, you can also log into customvision.ai. So there is a portal called customvision.ai, and it is very tightly linked to the resource you just created on the Azure portal. So when you click on this, and you have to come and create a new project. So if I have to do that, let me go to the home. Once this resource is built, you need to log into this page, and you can click on new project. You need to provide a name to the project, like a test project. I'm not going to create a project here because I've already created. I'm just going to show the options that you get. So once you create this project, you will get multiple options. Now you might be wondering, what is custom vision and what's the difference between a custom vision and just a pure vision? So there's a vision API and there's a custom vision API. What's the difference between them? So the difference between these two is, in the custom vision, you can bring your own data. You can train your own data according to your needs, publish them, make it production. So you have more control on what you want to do in custom vision, basically. And so you would, if you think you already have enough data and you want to have a custom way of processing those images to find out different aspects, then custom vision is the way to go. And once you do that, you have to choose whether it's what kind of project type you want to choose, whether it's a classification or object detection. And I think I just covered that. So when you choose classification, basically you're trying to find out the labels of the classes for the given images, whether this image belongs to this category or not. Whereas in object detection, you try to find out where the object is. And it could be multi-class or multi-label, like you can have multiple tags for images and multiple tags per image. So which means basically in an image, I can have multiple tags, or I can have one tag per image. So I can choose, since I'm trying to just find an image which has a mask or not, I'm using multi-class. And then you can choose a domain. So when you choose a domain, it impacts the kind of data or the pre-processed data already Azure has, and it can load that data for you. So in this case, we don't have any, so we can just keep general and we can create a project. Now, when you create the project, you get a simple screen which has no data into it because you have not uploaded anything. And once you have this screen in front of you, the thing that you can do is you can see on the top is add images. So right now we are in training images. We are not looking at performance or prediction because we haven't even done anything. So the first thing we need to do is add images. So when you click on add images, it will open your local machine Explorer and you can choose the images. So what I did was, typically I have some data I downloaded. So for example, if I go here, there's quite a few data over here you can see. And you can download them as well. So you should have enough amount of data. So I have two kinds of data. Data of images with mask and images with no mask, because I want to make sure that I'm able to identify both of them equally. The amount of data that you need depends on the kind of problem you're trying to solve. So typically, any classification problem that you're trying to solve needs good enough data, which means you should have roughly, it could be ranging between anything between 100 to 5,000, maybe more than that. You need to see that you will come up with some amount of data you need to upload. Try to work with your algorithm, try to work with it and see what's your accuracy level, what's your performance of your model. And if you think that it is not suitable or it's not applicable or it's not coming up to your performance levels, you can upload more data to it. And you have to keep doing that apart from feature engineering and fine-tuning your hyper parameters. You have to make sure you have a right quantity of data uploaded in both all the kind of labels and masks classes to ensure that it can predict. So you will typically go and upload it. Now I'm not going to upload this from here because I've already done that. So let me go back and show you where it is. So if I load my project, COVID-19, and it's of type of object detection. I chose object detection and I've uploaded all the images. So when you upload an image, you can tag those images. So when you click on this image, for example, and you can see that I have tagged saying this guy has no mask, this has a mask, this has no mask. I might have missed few. So I can just drag like this and say this is a mask. And so I can keep on doing this for each image and I can tag them whether the image has a mask or not. So that's what I'm doing. So no mask and mask. So if I choose no mask, see these are the guys no mask and these are the guys who are wearing mask. And I have to do this for all the images. And I see this is no mask. I've done that. And I can keep doing that as many number of times as I please to ensure that I have the right data with me. Once I've done this for all the images, I have a mask and no mask over here. I have roughly 80 images for mask and no mask 51 images. And I will do the training on this. To do the training, I will have to press on the train button. And once I click on the train button, it will ask me what kind of training you want to do, a quick training or an advanced training. The difference between these two is that a quick training will take less time and it will not go into the depths of multiple layers in convolutional networks behind the scenes. Whereas in advanced training, it will do a deep convolutional neural network, which means it will go into multiple layers and it's also time consuming. It could, so if I say, for example, advanced training, then you can say for how long your training has to run. So maybe from 1 hour to 24 hours, you can choose any of them. And behind the scenes, the GPUs that's there, the CPU compute power that you have is going to actually execute the algorithm model, see what's the best way to identify the information that you've provided with the images and the mask information, and will do so for you. And you can start training over here. I'm not going to do that right now. In case of a quick training, you can just go and train, and behind the scenes, whatever the resources, it will quickly train based on that and provide you information. So once you do the training, you can actually publish, or we can also, once you come here, you would be able to see that I published them. And once you publish them, you get the information about the different kind of parameters talking about the different performance levels of your application. So generally there are 4 of them: precision, recall, accuracy, and sensitivity. And the portal shows you the precision and recall. Now you might be wondering what these are. So let me take you back to my slides and show you what these are. So if you look at the precision and the recall and the accuracy, they're basically nothing but few formulas, and how you have to read these formulas, I'll explain that to you. But before that, we need to understand the confusion matrix. To understand the confusion matrix, there are 2 kinds of value we have. So one is the actual value and the other one is the predicted value. So the actual value is whether you actually, so in case of a mask, whether in the image, if there is 1%, whether there is a mask or not. And the predicted value is whether, if the actual value is 1, for example, yes, there is a mask, the predicted value is 1, then you have a positive case, which is called a true positive. In case the actual value is 0, which means there is no mask, but your algorithm is predicting, yes, there is a mask. And that's a false positive. That's also called type 1 error. In case your actual value is that there is a mask, but but the predicted value is that there is no mask, and just the vice versa, that there is no mask and the prediction is also no mask, then it's a true negative. But it's a false negative, and true negative is when you have a mask but you don't see them. So using these 4 different values, you can actually calculate the precision and recall. So precision, as you can see, is true positive by actual results, and that is nothing but true positive by true positive plus false positive, which means out of all the positive cases, whether good or bad, how many were good? So this will give you the level of precision, means out of all the good ones, how many of all the good predictions, how many were actually true. Whereas on the recall, it talks about, right, out of all the good results, which means false negative and true positive, which means in both the cases I'm getting the right result. Whether if a person is wearing a mask and I'm telling it's wearing a mask, if a person is not wearing a mask and I'm telling it's not wearing a mask. In those cases, how many are actually true positive? So these are the 2 important levels, and accuracy is obviously out of total, how much you have true positive and true negative. So accuracy, you might be wondering, might be the best case scenario to figure out. But at times when your data is biased, say for example, 99% of your data is not wearing a mask and you are identifying that's not wearing a mask, then the accuracy level will obviously be very high, but it might not be the right model, because when you actually go and take it to a data, which is your actual data test data, it might not give the right results. So typically you should look at all these levels and make sure they are beyond 80%. And depending on the use case, it could change. So beyond some good level of percentage to give you confidence whether you're working right or not. Now, in my case, the precision is high and the recall is low. So I might have to maybe, put more images to train them, or maybe do a deep learning to ensure that the level of precision and recall I'm getting is higher. Let me actually show you how it works. So once you do this, you can get the prediction URL from here and actually run your application. So let me now try to run this application and show you how it works. So I created a simple UI using PowerShell, so it does not have to spend much time into it. I got the URL, as you can see, from the same prediction URL from the portal, and I actually told where my files are. This is on my local system, and obviously when you create a custom vision API, it generates a key, so the key is over here. And I can use that to send the request to the custom vision API and get the values of it. So let me run and show you how it works. So for the first time you run this, it is going to pick one of the images. So let me show you where this image is. This is the image. So you see this has this lady has a mask. So if I go and see I can see that I was able to detect that there is a mask in this. So similarly, if I go for next image, you see this image has 8 pictures and all of them are wearing a mask, but it was able to identify all of them. You see all the red lines, it was able to identify all the masks. And if I go for the next one, it takes a while to come to the next one because it has to process. You see none of them are wearing a mask, so it does not identify any image. Now the next one is quite interesting because in this image, there are people who are wearing masks and there are people who are not wearing masks. So it was able to identify or distinguish between them as to who is wearing a mask or who is not wearing a mask. So similarly, I can show you some more examples here. There's nobody wearing a mask in this case. In this case, there are a few people it's not identified as wearing a mask, whereas the some who are wearing it, and things like that. So let me now go and take you behind the scenes what happens. So let me stop this. And let me show you what happens. So when you actually create such an application using cognitive services, you get a URL like this. So you can use this URL. You can use it in your Postman. There's a prediction URL, which is fine. You can use it. You have to use it, in fact, before sending it as part of your header. The content type is application JSON. Now, when I send this request using Postman, what I get back is I obviously need to provide the URL of my where the URL of my image is. So I uploaded this image in one of my Azure portal over here, and I just give a link to it in my Postman so that my Kubernetes services can download this image directly from this particular URL, and it gives me a result over here. You can see from here that the results that the important thing is the predictions, and the prediction is giving me a JSON array, and within the array I have multiple objects. The first object shows me the probability, so it might have identified multiple masks, or it might have identified multiple different regions, and it gives me what's the probability whether it's a mask or not, and what's the bounding box. So it gives me the left, top, height, and width and region. So if you see, this is all percentage. This is all in terms of percentage. So 68 is how much percentage from the left and things like that. So you will see that this is just 0.1% confidence, 0.1. In this way, it has identified a lot of things, but a few in which you will see the probability is 99%, which is quite high. That is what we are looking for. So you see 95%, 99%, and that is what we are looking for. So they are the ones which might be having mask in them. And so you can read this information, find the box, and that's what I did. Take the box information and render it on your UI. Now you can use this thing also within your Azure functions. So I created an Azure function as well. And instead of, I use the same URL, I use the same API key, and actually I send that request and try to get information out of it. So the way it works is I have few information like the prediction URL and the key. So I put them over here in my config file so that I don't have to change. If I have to change them, I can change them on the fly. So you can see them over here. They are over here. And then I get my data as a part of HTTP request in my serverless function, which I read it, I deserialize it. And once I deserialize it, I get the URL. I get the URL of the image, location of the image. I use that. I have the prediction key already loaded from my configuration file. I get the bytes for my content. So what I do is, using HTTP client, I try to download my image. So you see I'm getting the image from here. Once I get the image, then I make sure that I send that image to my Kubernetes service. So I send that image to the Kubernetes service, and Kubernetes service results back in a JSON value, as I showed you on Postman, which has an array. And I read the prediction values. If I read the prediction values, and if it is beyond, I'm not checking, I'm checking for 0.75. So if it is beyond 0.75, then I'm saying whether there's a mask in it or there's no mask in it. I could do multiple pre-processing and post-processing in these Azure functions, because then I can call a next function, for example, or chain multiple functions, do multiple different work or job on that. And I can keep sending those images to get more information out of it. I can store them at different places along with information and things like that. I can do all kind of processing with these Azure functions. So this gives me flexibility to actually create intelligent applications now on the fly. So creating this application took me, apart from collecting those images, it took me less than half an hour to do it, apart from the training aspect. Because the training, I did a deep training for an hour. So apart from that 1 hour of deep training and collecting images, it took me less than half an hour to actually build an entire solution. So that's how productive, how fast you can be, and to create new applications and new solutions without spending a lot of money, because serverless, as you know, there's no money involved as a capital expenditure or pay as you go. It's more about on consumption. So if you don't consume anything, you don't pay anything. And the first few requests all was free. So I didn't have to pay anything for my Azure function. And for first few requests, even for Kubernetes services, for a few requests every minute is also free. I don't have to pay anything for Kubernetes services. Obviously, when I take it to production and there's a huge consumption, then I might just have to pay for each request, and that's about it. So I could create such an application almost free of cost. That was the beauty of it, and I could do it in less than an hour from a POC point of view. And so it's a good use case for me from both from a cost as well as from time perspective. And as you can see, the results are good, almost good. Obviously, I have to do some more training on them, but you can see that I am able to identify masks quite easily. And it could be anything. So this is a mask in this case, but it could be anything for that matter. Now it could be, different kind of cars you might have uploaded. I'm trying to identify which car is that. And obviously you have to upload different kind of cars. You have to upload multiple images of same type of cars. And then you have to go and tag them, whether, if just the Indian context, whether it's a Maruti or a Honda or a different kind of car. If you want to go into details about which variant of the car is, then you can also do that. But obviously, you have to then again keep on uploading those kind of images and keep on tagging them, keep on training them, keep on testing them. And once you are satisfied with the test, then you just publish them so that you get a prediction URL and use that prediction URL wherever you want, because at the end of the day, that's a REST API. And you can call it from any platform, any language, wherever you want to call it from. You can call it from mobile apps, you can call it from your web apps, you can call it from your desktop apps, whatever you think is the right way to do it. And then consume those services from there. Now, if you want to do some pre-processing, post-processing, if you want to do more activity around those images and the data that you're getting from cognitive services, then you can put them into serverless functions and make sure that you can send those, join those functions, use multiple different kind of cognitive services, because there are not only custom vision, there are other kind of cognitive services, like for example, you can do OCRs, you can do audios, you can do language detection, text detections, and things like that. You can combine all of them together to create a complete intelligent application for yourself. So that is the beauty of cognitive services along with serverless technologies, because then almost you're paying nothing and you can almost create an entire application in a small fraction of time, compared to doing everything on your own and spend more money than required. I think that's all I had from the session perspective. So I can quickly go through my slides and see if anything is missing. No, I think almost I covered everything. So if there are any questions, I will take them up now and see.